Hello and welcome to the Young Cynics spoiler discussion of Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker. I'm Tyrone.
And I'm Harry, and we are the Young Cynics.
Yep, so we're about 2 hours after seeing the film for the first time. We just got back from the IMAX in the city, and it is a mixed bag to say the least, this film. It is, I feel like after The Last Jedi there was a whole bunch of course correction which Disney had to do for this film. And however it would be interesting to see whether or not that would get in the way of delivering a satisfying finale. Now, me personally, I'm a fan of both The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. However, I can completely understand the flaws that people have and the issues that people have with them. So I feel like my initial reaction to this film is there were moments where I was genuinely hooked into the film. But unfortunately, I feel like the first, say, half an hour of it was what really took me out. It was like the famous quote from J.J. Abrams in an interview was, fuck it. Like, it's what honestly this film felt like at times. It felt like J.J. Abrams was kind of just doing his own thing, and unfortunately I just never felt like it really paid off in the way you want it. Only in a few scenes where it did get quite emotional, and those were well done, but the larger plot was just unfortunately too silly for me, and I'd say Avengers Endgame was a movie where I felt like it was kind of like that's a movie where you cherish the dumb in movies, especially that final battle. But I feel like with this movie, it just felt cheap, everything. Harry?
Well, I would say that The Force Awakens I quite enjoyed. I, for a while, have considered it probably not the best, but my favourite Star Wars movie. And then Last Jedi I thought was a bit of a step down. It was still... I enjoyed it. I'm not one of those people who is hating on it, but
Yes.
I'd probably say that this is equivalent to Last Jedi in my standings. There was a lot of good in the final act once you accepted what the movie had decided to be.
Yes, yeah.
And then the first two acts where it's just sort of everyone racing to be put in the right position for the third act. I could take it or leave it quite personally, but I overall would say I enjoyed the movie. And love these characters that have been built up, but it's certainly not a home run for me.
No, yeah, I'd say he stumbled right out the gate, Mr. JJ, and then he got to first base, and then he started to get into a sprint, and then once he got to second, he's twisted his ankle.
I do love the mix of baseball and running analogies there, but I think, Abrams is limping throughout part of this movie, and he doesn't quite pick up his momentum for a long enough stint throughout this.
Which is quite surprising, because I feel like, as someone who's watched I've watched both of his Star Trek movies, I've watched The Force Awakens, I thought those were more, say what you will about story and plot conveniences, but to me they were more competently helmed, I guess. This one just felt like throwing everything at the wall to see kind of what sticks. So I think the best way to go through this is to start from the beginning. And I think I looked at you after the opening crawl had finished, and I think I just said wow, because it started with the phrase, what was it? The dead rise, or the dead are awake.
The dead speak, I think.
The dead
it
speak.
was.
So Palpatine has apparently been sending out these force, I guess force messages, like in Harry Potter when Voldemort's communicating. I guess he's been doing that with the entire galaxy.
But finally, this time the Emperor is canonically resurrected in a sense, because there's been about 100 incarnations that are no longer canon where he's reincarnated, but this time it's the real deal apparently.
Whether he's been a droid or whether he's just been some random Force clone. So that finishes, and we start off the film with Kylo Ren. On a planet that I originally thought was Mustafar, the lava planet from the end of Revenge.
You did, yeah. You're like, Mustafar?
Yeah,
a red planet. Like it's gotta be.
You look at it, and then so it starts off with him going around just some really great a really great way of informing where the character's at. He's just completely dark side. You see his eyes, and you see like the bruises on his face and the scars still there, and you see how far he is from being redeemed almost, and then he finds this Sith, I believe like a Sith holocron or a...
It's not quite a holocron,
it's
like a tracking beacon.
It's like a tracking beacon, yeah.
But also it's like an ancient relic?
Which, yeah, so he goes to... this planet where the Emperor is, and he touches down, walks inside, and then immediately the Emperor is talking to him. And I was kind of shocked that they would come out this early in the movie, and
straight out of the gate with a lot of the sort of the trailer dialogue, I've been pulling all the strings, and that, and he's just from the get-go, I'm the big bad of this like last trilogy, the whole saga.
He has been, I guess, is Palpatine the embodiment of evil, I guess. It's basically a Sith homeworld. So there is this massive sort of Sith temple, I guess, and he's walking around, and then like
there's some manky
Snoke looking heads, which to me, I personally found that to be utterly ridiculous. They've been constructing Snokes to run the First Order, and Palpatine's just been controlling him the entire time. It felt like such a weird and cheap way just to, you guys wanted your Snoke resolution. No, he was Palpatine the entire time. Which, for me in The Last Jedi, I always felt that killing him off in that way was always about forwarding the plot with Rey and Kylo Ren, and that internal struggle between the two, and getting Kylo into a different, Kylo to a higher place in the story.
He just sort of served more as an obstacle than an actual
force
character. Or a character or a plot point. He was just means to an end for Kylo in his pursuit of power, be that evil at the time, but now sort of going into...
He's a literal pawn, because now it's established that there are multiple versions of his body they can pick and choose at will almost. So, Ian McDiarmid, of course, returning as the Emperor, and he's zombified. He's got a few of his fingers are stubs, I guess.
Brittle, and they look like they've been like bitten off by some creature almost there.
Yeah, his eyes, he's
so sickly.
He's got the Undertaker eyes completely smoky white, and
although he has aged better than Luke Skywalker between the trilogies.
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
He's just a slightly deceased, a little rotten version of where we leave the Emperor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, his fingers are the ones that's what brought the full brunt of the Darth Vader's throw. His fingers got hurt, I think.
Which means without his fingies, he can't do his big
Force
zaps.
Lightning, yes. So this is the scene where Ren, of course, confronts Palpatine, and Palpatine tells him that he has an armada of Star Destroyers in the classic Empire look, and they've all got the destructive capabilities of a Death Star.
Yay, we don't need a Death Star, we just need something that someone can say is just as powerful now, and does the exact same thing.
We've had the Starkiller base, which was even 5 times as powerful as the Death Star. We've had in the last Jedi, they had that Death Star battering ram to crack open the door on Crate, and now apparently just every Star Destroyer just has a weapon that can blow up a planet.
The Death Star is what a xenomorph is to the Alien franchise. It's like, let's just make it bigger or more. And in this one, they've gone, let's make them mobile and let's make 100 of them it's like nowhere.
It's like the dog xenomorph from Alien 3.
Way to bring the mood down with an Alien 3 reference.
Alien 3 reference. Yeah, David Finch is somewhere off and just freaking out about having Vietnam flashbacks of that movie. So then we come to the opening scene is shaky because you find out all of this stuff, how it's kind of just to me it felt like a lazy way of saying Palpatine's behind everything.
It's a quick catch up. We've killed the overarching antagonist in Snoke, and so now we need someone new that we can defeat while redeeming Kylo.
And it's just Palpatine, even though it was never hinted in any other movie. So now we move on to our main characters. So we rejoin with Poe and Finn in the middle of a reconnaissance mission. So they're aboard the Millennium Falcon with Chewie. And they receive words of Kylo Ren's plan to join with the Emperor.
This is after meeting about a spy in the
spy. There is a spy within the First Order, so they come to some guy and he gives them this, I guess, a wire which they plug into
uplink
R2.
into R2 and give him the coded message from the spy, and then they hyperspeed off.
Yeah.
Through different environments, in the same vein as like Guardians of the Galaxy 2 when they're going through all the click points and it's just goofy locations, dodging the TIE fighters that are pursuing them.
It felt so strange. The tonal inconsistent, like, at least it's not within the same scene. The tone is inconsistent, but it is, you go from this like dark and very sinister scene, which was the opening, plenty of murder with Kylo Ren just chopping bodies left and right, and then you get to this weird sort of
goofy almost
scene. And I wouldn't even call it prequel goofy. It was Marvel-esque, I'd say, with the quick quips.
But it was also taking itself seriously to an extent. And they just it's like hyperspeed at this stage isn't even like going really fast. It's just teleporting because they're going into an environment.
And now I guess we've established that in the Last Jedi that the First Order, I guess, can just track everyone through hyperspace. So he does 3 of those. And they're light skipping.
Light skipping, they call it. Yep. So it's technically not. It's.
And then hard cut after that to Rey's continuing her Jedi training with Princess Leia. So I guess this is the first time we see her training. First time we see her honing into her skills with the Force, and this was where the movie. This is where I finally started to get into the movie, because the movie finally took its time. The John Williams score finally started to kick in, like, in a more peaceful way.
It finally gets back around to the Jedi, which is the whole purpose of this saga. Yep. We've got the smugglers side story, we've got the Sith side story, but now we're finally tuned back into our protagonists.
And I'm probably going to say this quite a few times. One of the best things they did in this film was integrating Leia into the plot. The deleted scenes they've found from The Last Jedi and The Force Awakens, and the way they've done it with the body doubles was absolutely brilliant. So apparently, so General Leia, another point being that the whole Leia force pull from the last movie, where she flies back to the ship, I guess they do a lot of work to sort of explain how that was done, which we'll get to later.
Just to justify it.
Yeah, just to justify that. So Rey is having her training, and then while that's going on, she starts having visions of Kylo Ren, and starts having wild swings as a blaster ball started sort of getting her left and right. And then, losing her temper, chops a tree and falls on BB-8.
Giving into her emotions.
Yes, getting into a dark side foreshadowing, which there was a whole hell of a lot of in the film. I'll just start off. Daisy Ridley, this is my favourite one of her. I liked her more in this one than both the previous two.
She has a lot more to do, I feel. That's within the character, because she has now come to this almost a conclusion of her identity.
There does feel like
until it's brought back.
There does feel like a definitive A plot, which was Rey, and Kylo Ren kind of got not kicked to the curb, I'd say, but his presence was lessened in comparison to The Last Jedi. I felt like, although he was still great, and for the first half, I felt he was a lot more one-dimensional, sort of. But yeah,
until they get to the Endor system, that's sort of when it all turns around for Kylo, and he's not just this desperate, angry little boy who's trying to usurp anyone who could take the power away from him from the Sith. When he actually comes into his own and he's like, "Is this what I want to be?" Or
so Poe and Finn return, and then. So this was the first bit. So I thought that they were setting up a Poe and Rey relationship. They have the banter, which is very much reminiscent of Han and Leia. They're having quick back and forth, having goes at each other.
They're just trying to clarify that these people have actually met one another more than like twice.
Yeah, in the Last Jedi, there's that bit at the end where they sort of meet up and they're smiling at each other. And then in The Force Awakens, there's a moment where they're standing like basically right next to each other, and to think that they didn't introduce or say hi or anything.
Well, they probably did, just off screen.
Just kind of seemed odd to me, yeah. So, so there's sort of a love triangle for a bit, but it feels like they didn't want to explore it and kind of just dropped it as soon as they got to the bounty hunter planet where we see Zora Bliss.
There's always been these pairings since The Last Jedi. Mm-hmm. It's just Poe has had no pairing, which makes it a little uncertain because he's in the middle.
Yeah.
There's the people who are like, Finn and Poe for the win.
Yeah.
And then the Rey and Poe sort of people, but just because Poe is so uncentralized in a love interest or a plot point like your Rose, or like the contrast of like Kylo, am I going to turn for him? It's a bit undefined. So I think when they do introduce a character in Zora Bliss, it does sort of specify a lot more of this uncertainty.
So this is what we're introduced to. Sort of the MacGuffin that they've got to find is they're looking for the Sith tracker, and I'd say for the next hour the movie gets turned into an Indiana Jones globe-trotting-esque film where it's jumping location to location, having these different sort of space cultures and having our characters try to interact with these new worlds. And the action scenes were I felt this was where the film really I started to get into the film for a bit, so that they come to the sand planet Pisana,
which is our third sand planet, all of which are visited in this movie.
Fourth sand planet if you include Geonosis, and Attack of the Clones, Tatooine, Jakku, and now Pisana. So
all of our sort of globetrotting as well, hot on our heels, are the Knights of Ren and the Empire.
Yes.
Because they can just, as you said before, track anything, anyone, anywhere. They'll just... they're onto it pretty quick.
So Rey is presented a necklace by one of the local children, I guess, on Pisana. And this is when we get our first sort of Force vision or Force connection between Kylo Ren and Rey, where, just like in The Last Jedi, they're able to see each other but not their surroundings. And it's now been even more, this Force ability it's evolved even more. The Kylo Ren grabbing the necklace, meaning that more than just a couple drops of water as matter is able
they can
to
fully interact with one another's surroundings without
yes.
seeing it. Because you see a couple of times, there are a couple of sort of different tricks they pull on one another, trying to figure out who's what or who's where.
Yeah.
And there's a necklace that goes across. There's these shattered bits and pieces. You see different things. So this ability is almost developing as they both get a lot more powerful.
This is when a stormtrooper comes up and confronts them, who immediately gets an arrow through the eye, and almost instantly you can tell, as soon as you see who it is.
There's an anonymous man who's roughly the build of Lando,
Lando Calrissian. So he takes him into his tent and reveals himself, and then they ask for his help. Him and Chewie have a great little reunion, which was really fun to see, and Billy Dee Williams he was fantastic.
He gets all their names. He pronounces them right.
He pronounces, right? Yeah. He does not go Han, or it was pointed out in Solo, that one of my favorite little moments, I guess. But so they ask him to join with him, and
the galaxy always needs more pilots, and he's all, I'll see you in the third act, but I'm not going to go help you now. I've got to live this life.
So he kind of takes off, and they find some skiffs because they realise that, the Knights of Ren and a bunch of stormtroopers and jetpack troopers are about to come. So they have...
on these dirt bikes that are like speeders, but with wheels.
Yeah, so Poe basically... hotwires two of the skiffs, and they take off, and we get this. I guess it's a fine speeder chase. J.J. Abrams, of course, he does really well. The action is his forte. Unfortunately, the shaky cam at times made it a bit hard, and then so they fall onto like a large area of like grey stones, and then just all of a sudden, they start to fall through.
It's quicksand. It's your devil snare. It's whatever you want to call it. But they're all sinking into it, and there's no escaping it because the plot requires.
And then Finn yells out, "Rey, I always wanted to tell you," and then whoosh.
Which is, they're like, oh, what were you going to say? But the answer is never followed up on.
The answer, you never find out. It's made a joke of, where people are saying, "Oh, is it time to reveal all secrets?" Or
Poe's being like, "Well, you don't want to tell your secrets in front of me. I thought we had a true bromance here."
Yeah. And so never followed up on again. J.J. Abrams,
classic mystery box. What is it?
Didn't realise that this was the last one. So now, so they fall through, and they're in this underground cavern. So they discover what they've been searching for. So the new MacGuffin, not the Sith tracker, is a knife.
It's a clue to the actual MacGuffin.
It's a clue to the actual MacGuffin. A knife with the Sith coordinates. So 3PO is reading it out, and she's looking at it, and gives it to 3PO, and 3PO conveniently,
to give us a middle act.
It is against his programming to read out Sith language, because
this is from a Sith bounty hunter who is aligned with the Sith, who had the last known locations of this clue to get to the actual the end game, the third act. So we've got, now all these different side characters and MacGuffins, and it's a lot of fun.
And then this is the first scene where we see who Rey's parents are. So Rey's parents
are still nobody.
Nobodies. To the viewer, they are nobody. And we see that knife, that Sith knife, was the one that was the thing that killed her parents. So I think everyone was quite compelled, as I was personally, like, okay, here we go.
This is while there's still some ambiguity to
Yes.
the bloodline, and they refuse to give up Rey's location. So clearly, someone beyond the trilogy has been searching for Rey.
Because I'm a big proponent of the idea that Rey should be a nobody. I like the idea of this sort of magical... It makes the Force magical again, that she's not related to anyone.
She's just a random broom kid orphan.
She's someone that the Force has found itself in order to balance out the light and the dark. And it's about her, like, journey into a bigger world. And in The Last Jedi, when she finds out that she is not a Skywalker or a Solo or anything special, it's like the worst news she could find out. Because, as Ben says... you have no place in this story, and she wanted so desperately to find her place within this world.
And we do see a couple of scenes throughout this where there's a very obvious scene where it's like, oh, my name is Rey, and then another character asks, oh, what is your family name? And she's just like, oh, I don't have a family name. And it's like, okay, JJ, you're going back to this well, Rian Johnson closed the door, but beyond that door, you're trying to open a way around.
Yes.
So, yeah, we're still on this who is Rey, even though...
So now we get to the big sort of... There are multiple scenes of setting up a small thing and having a payoff, but the one you could see from miles away was Rey and the gang, I guess, find a large sort of serpent in the cave, and it's injured, and Rey, of course, uses the Force and puts her hand on it, and we're wondering if it's communicating, but then it heals.
She transfers her Force energy into this creature, healing it in the process, which is obviously a surprise tool that will help us later in the story that we're introducing to show that Rey is part of the good side, and she does have this new Force ability, which I'm sure is canonical somewhere.
In The Last Jedi, when they were introduced us to the Force connection, and the Force projection, to me they were logical, and they didn't poke enough holes in the original trilogy. Like, if you use the Force projection, you would die. Henceforth, why nobody does it. Meanwhile, in this one...
There is no downfall. I thought from the get-go, because they specify she's transferring her energy, I thought this would weaken her or do something along those lines that mean in the next confrontation she is a little depowered because she's done this, making a sort of evening it out for all the powerful light, there is powerful dark.
But no, J.J. Abrams he's cured death. He did it in Star Trek Into Darkness with Khan's Superblood. And now he does it in... he's done it in Star Wars. At least, which we can explain at the end, it won't be used further.
It's not an eternal concept. It helps when the plot wants it to get certain characters to certain places.
So continuing on with the beautiful convenience of C-3PO not being able to speak Sith, this is where we are transferred to another planet, like sort of smuggler's den.
We're trying to get the master hacker friend of Poe.
Yes.
So we can factory reboot C-3PO because his programming doesn't let him say it. If we reset him, he can say it, but he won't have any memories. That's where we get to the whole scene in the trailer, taking one last good look at my friends. So he's getting factory reset instead of actually sort of going off to battle or anything along those lines, like I felt insinuated across the internet. But we're now on this character where it is obviously set up that Poe has had some falling out with this gang, which turns out to be a spice running gang, which is a recurring joke, and we get clearly an old flame of his played by Kerry Russell, who we see the eyes of, and that's about it.
Yep. So they realise that they've got to head to this planet. So they find the ship of the bounty hunter or the Sith or the Jedi Hunter.
Yep.
That is the one who killed Rey's parents, and this is where we get the first big scene, which I guarantee will be, I'd say, widely panned in the Star Wars.
Is this the oh shit moment, or
this is the oh shit moment?
The big flip.
So
because we get a big flip.
We get our big flip, which we saw in the trailer of Kylo Ren flying his TIE fighter forward. Rey does a backflip,
and she just slices one of the wings off it, and it just explodes, and he walks out just unscathed.
Even though sort of the pod area of the TIE fighter just goes spiraling and rolling along for hundreds of meters. He comes out completely fine.
But while this is happening, Chewbacca has left the ship that they're trying to send off
to follow Rey. Yep.
And we see the Knights of Ren sort of maniacally sneak out from behind a rock, and then as Rey returns to the ships,
Finn realizes that Chewbacca's been caught,
and they both come to the realization that they're loading him into a ship to fly off because they've caught Chewie.
Yeah. So this is where it happens. Rey reaches out with the Force to stop the First Order. I guess
like a cargo ship,
cargo ship, an infantry shuttle or something, I guess you'd call it. And then Ren is slowly walking towards, and he reaches out with the Force as well, and they're both trying to pull it, and they're trying to.
I guess Kylo's trying to push it.
It's confusing because the Knights of Ren are on that ship, we think. So we think that the Knights of Ren are on that ship, and Chewbacca's on that ship. And that's what that's what all the characters believe, and they're both using the Force to such an extent where we get our first big giveaway of whose Rey really is. When
she strains herself so much that she shoots lightning out of her fingers
at the ship,
instantly exploding it.
Instantly, the thing splits in two, blows up, and
no survivors.
People freaking out in the cinema, wondering what the heck has actually just happened. Chewbacca's on that ship. She screams out Chewie, and then sprints off to the
actual ship so they can get out of there.
Get out.
They're content with Chewie's dead.
Yeah.
Which, if you don't see a body, no one's ever really dead. So, especially in this nerd stuff.
Of course, yes. So, yeah. So then we realise though. So we return and Hux is there. So Hux has kind of been sidelined for Richard E. Grant's character, Admiral Prime, I believe. Might not be Admiral, but Captain Prime or whatever. So he's become the number one after Hux losing the Resistance at the end of the Last Jedi, and of course the failure of the Starkiller base. He's now become just a second guy, I guess. So they decide to lock Chewie away, and
Chewie, who is alive, we find out, because he was just conveniently on another ship that has come out of nowhere. But
yep,
Chewie's alive, so we're relieved, and we'll let this one slide.
We will let this one slide because Star Wars, and I guess it's just a big old fake out.
But thank God it was, because I was not ready to.
I wasn't ready to see it happen like that, and I guarantee you that people are very even the people who still love Rey. Definitely turned on her after that scene.
The scene where she seemingly murdered Chewbacca.
And then we get an oddly placed. So it's meant to be an emotional moment where Rey, Finn, and Poe say, "We're going to do it for Chewie. We're going to win this war."
Which comes
for him.
Straight after the reveal that Chewie is actually alive.
If they switch those scenes around, I think there would have been more investment in that scene and more emotion. But unfortunately, it comes off strangely comedic.
It's almost the audience knows something you don't know, and these guys are wasting their time mourning someone who's just fine. It really doesn't mean anything.
So they head off to this smuggler's den sort of planet. Don't have the name here, but this is where we are introduced to Kerry Russell's character Zori Bliss, who it's, I guess, revealed that there was some sort of romantic or platonic work relationship between her and Poe.
Poe, who was just trying to get a smooch the whole movie to no avail.
It is, yeah. And then, so they take C-3PO to Babu because they need a program 3PO which will scrap his old programming, which restricts him from being able to do the work of translate this Sith language, I guess, which is written in the knife. So they do that. We get the line from the trailer, "I'm taking one last look at my friends," and then
from here on, C-3PO's classic gag, like, "Oh, nice to meet you." And then he's introduced to the character who reset him, he recognises him as his oldest friend.
5 lines as a menacing C-3PO. The crowd laughed, and then Babu just goes back in and reprograms him again, and then he mind wipes C-3PO, which I guess must happen a lot. Because you see it. You see it at the end of that convenient scene at the end of Revenge of the Sith where they have 3PO's mind wiped. What else we got? And then we also get introduced to the new toy D-O,
which was on the smuggler's ship, and BB-8 has just transferred some of its power over, and we now have 4 droids running around in this movie, and two of them help the plot.
Did you find, they repeated the phrase, "never underestimate a droid," and I thought that
multiple times.
I thought that was going to be a big thing in
but
the
it
end.
doesn't pay off in the third act.
Pay off in the third
There's
act.
a small payoff in the second act leading into the third act, revealing that all the MacGuffins they've been searching for are actually in this droid that they've acquired.
Yeah.
But there's no more avail, and so we go on this planet which is just getting stormed by troopers and the Knights of Ren, and we've got to try and escape. And Zora Bliss has this token that will allow you onto any ship magically. They just won't question it. It is a
First Order leader ship or something.
So from this point onwards, we send our heroes onto the actual Star Destroyer because Rey has realised that Chewie's still alive and that Kylo is on board.
And the Falcon's there, and you can't have Star Wars without the Millennium Falcon.
Exactly. So our characters, Kylo and Rey, swap positions, almost comedically going through those sort of the Scooby-Doo doors, and we are now on the ship doing a heist, as every Star Wars movie ends up
having some sort of sneaking around. But this one was kind of just, they land the ship, shoot up a bunch of stormtroopers, find Chewie, get out.
Caught.
Yeah, get caught. But then, this is where we get
the biggest blind side of the movie.
A genuinely interesting twist. Hux, who has become sort of a joke, a comedic relief character rather than a threat,
tasks himself to execute these 3 that have been caught, Chewbacca, Finn and Poe, and then he turns on the other stormtroopers in the room and he says, "I'm the spy."
You are the spy. And he says, "I don't want to see the Resistance win. I want to see Kylo Ren lose."
Which this brotherly sibling rivalry just peaks in this moment.
That was something I was really interested to see what they'd do with it. And I don't know, I felt like that was one of the not rare moments, but few and far between moments of like really good payoff from previous movies in this one.
However, spoiler alert, this
it lasts about 2 minutes.
This sibling rivalry lasts 2 more minutes for the rest of the franchise.
Richard E. Grant turns around and blasts the guy in the chest, and Hux goes flying backwards and dead. So,
meanwhile, while this is going on, Rey is sort of sneaking through Kylo's Kylo's stuff, trying to get the dagger, the MacGuffin dagger, which was taken with Chewbacca.
And
Chewie's stuff.
And ammo belt, yeah.
And then a very inconvenient, like, force time call from Kylo Ren comes in, and he's like, "Where are you?" This, that, and they have another one of their conversations.
Before realising that she is there in
his chambers.
In his chambers.
When the Darth Vader mask
is,
goes from her location to his, and he's like, "Oh, sneaky! You're in my chambers."
So we get that scene from the trailer where they don't destroy Vader's mask, but the stand that it's on,
yeah.
Which, I mean, really doesn't do that much in the end.
Not particularly, but
nope.
So then it is the mad dash. Let's get out of here before Kylo's back.
Yeah.
To which they face a fair bit of resistance.
There was a great... I did like that scene, though, where, they bring the Falcon around and Rey's there. But then, this is where we get to my big problem with the movie. Rey and Kylo finally meet up face to face, in real, not through Force connection, but person to person, face to face. And he reveals to Rey that she is the granddaughter of Emperor Palpatine.
When you said she, I thought you were going for Sheev.
Sheev.
A little subtle. Sheev is the daughter of Palpatine. We have introduced Rey, her family name. She's now Rey Palpatine, which is... A lot of the Star Wars names are quite goofy. This one sounds particularly dumb. Rey Palpatine. Rey Kenobi, Rey Solo, Rey Skywalker.
Forget
they would all be far superior
forget
names.
Her being from nowhere and sort of this magical idea of the Force finding itself in her.
JJ considers himself very smart in looping around that her parents
that
are no
man
one
should not write screenplays
because her grandparent is someone.
Because her grandparent
and her parents didn't want to be Palps, so they ran away.
They ran away from her.
So they chose to be no one, as Kylo specifies to us.
It's just so goofy how he says it. He's like, "Do you know the truth? Emperor Palpatine is your grandfather."
Because at this stage they've reforged the mask, and so you can't really hear him.
You can't hear him.
Awfully great. You can understand him, but
so she's shocked by this, and then all of a sudden, before God forbid J.J. Abrams has to actually explain any more of this, Millennium Falcon comes around the corner, and there is a cool little scene where the Falcon sort of gets ready to Poe starts the thrusters on the Falcon.
Just sending all the troopers and everyone backwards, except Rey, who is not struggling whatsoever.
And Kylo, who's kind of force pushing against it, and that's a cool scene. And then Rey jumps towards the Falcon, grabs onto Finn, and they light speed
jet
out
off.
of place. Yep. So now, we've said, Hux is working for the Resistance. Comes to the dark side. So, and also in that scene where it's revealed that Rey is a Palpatine, Kylo says that she wants to join him, and he knows, and he's right because she's having that internal struggle, which is something I found really well done, sort of the internal struggle of Rey in this film,
and that shot from the trailer of Dark Rey with her double-ended lightsaber and that sort of the pull from within for her to go to the dark side and the pull from within for him to go to the good side.
She wants those answers, which was definitely hinted in The Last Jedi when she goes to the dark side place. And so she escapes, and then the Sith coordinates send them to the ruins of the original Death Star, which they just crash land the Millennium Falcon in some field.
Yeah.
And it's not made a big deal out of.
Not
it doesn't prove to be any sort of disadvantage of them when they fly back. This scene was actually I found this scene to be quite good, but there was something always constraining it from being great, and I think it was just I'm not sure. I feel like the way it was written, it's this whole swashbuckler adventure in the Star Wars universe, it could work, but I think when you're going for it in the ultimate final chapter,
it's the main storyline. This would work great as like an Uncharted style spin-off or something along those lines, but this is the dominant, like we're following Rey on her wacky adventures through this temple and that temple, and now we are looking for a sunken Death Star.
It's almost comedic how this next scene happens. It's Poe looks over at a girl and he's like, oh, how would we get over there? And then all of a sudden it's just Rey's just got on some sort of speeder boat ship, which
she's got a Star Wars kayak, and she's going up these
which wasn't seen before,
30-meter waves, and she would just kill it at bells if she can. If she can just surf up these with no sort of hassle or difficulty whatsoever.
Rey Palpatine shredding waves.
And so with little difficulty, even though they've got to wait till the next morning, she makes it onto the Death Star, and we see some opening scene of The Force Awakens, Rey climbing again. And she makes her way to the throne room quite quickly, considering how large the Death Star is.
And when Poe said it's going to take us years to get that part, which I guess, the Sith dagger has these little metal pieces you pull out of it, and it's almost like...
It's awfully convenient the way it landed and the way everything lines up. It's just the Force wills it to be that little bit simpler.
The will of the Force, the greatest writing hack that this saga has.
And so then Rey's in the throne room. A door opens up for reasons, and she walks through, and then she finds her evil doppelganger.
So
her mirror image.
They fight for about 3 moves, and then she does a Bilbo Baggins-esque snarl. Her teeth are sharpened.
Yeah.
And Rey goes flying backwards out, and then it's at this moment where who else shows up but Kylo Ren, Ben Solo.
Ben Swallow.
So they can have, you guessed it, another lightsaber
heart to heart.
So this fight I actually did find quite good. They're talking to each other, and Rey's still not sure whether it's the truth he's telling, but then
and he keeps bringing up I wanted you to take my hand, and she makes a comment that she wanted him to take her hand as well, but as Ben, not as Kylo Ren, which it does sort of highlights that they're both sort of struggling. The movie will probably end with them both on one side. It just is uncertain of which it's going to pick. To which I think Finn and the other reformed stormtrooper enter, and they're just sidelined instantly with the Force. And then they just jump out of the window, and they keep fighting in the wavy rain.
So I didn't mind that fight. I did quite enjoy the lightsaber fight between the two. The inner conflict was really well done in this one, because Rey's just learned a terrible truth, and Ben is still trying to get her on her side so that he can kill Palpatine, because as hinted as mentioned in the opening crawl, he wants to kill anyone who is a threat to his power. So,
as was the case with Snoke, and it seems he's threatening most of the First Order in the forms of Hux and all that should they cross him, he will end them.
So you see, as they're fighting, Rey's it's like she's losing that sort of drive to be able to fight, and you can see she's weakening, and Ren's really getting her shots in, which is when we cut back to the Rebel base.
On not Endor?
On not Endor. On a tropical Endor, I guess. And Leia heads over to a bed.
It's made very clear from the get-go that this will be her last stand.
Will be her final scene. It is silhouetted. It was not Carrie Fisher in that scene. And there is this moment where Ren is starting to really overpower Rey. It is a little bit sort of like Vader when Luke is sort of wailing on him at the end of Return of the Jedi.
Yep.
Very much so like that. And then she comes. I guess
She gets her mojo back.
She gets her mojo back, and Leia is able to communicate, like reach out with
She
the Force.
Gets through to Kylo for a split second.
And that drains all of her power, and it gives Rey time to
stab him through the
right through the
through
chest,
the abdomen,
but
or...
not the heart, the lower right abdomen, and
which ends the battle, and
Kylo
they're both
just sits
sort of
there.
sitting there weeping in the rain and the waves, and then we get the return of the MacGuffin power, because Rey, after fighting and sort of fatally wounding her enemy, she decides to heal him. So she transfers her Force energy once over again, and we see this wound heal up. Unfortunately, the outfit doesn't, so you just get this little circle of skin on Ben Swallow, but that sort of concludes the battle itself in this instance. And then after that point, I think that we get the is Finn and
gosh, what was her name here?
Just reformed Stormtrooper number 2.
Yeah. But yeah, basically, so that happens, and Rey leaves with. Wait, does she leave with Finn?
I believe so. Otherwise, it's the Millennium Falcon that comes back.
She patches. Yeah.
No, so the Millennium Falcon returns.
The Millennium Falcon returns and picks up Finn and his new friend, and then what happens is Rey patches up Kylo's injury with the Force heal we saw before, and then
just sort of cuts and ditches.
Yeah, ditches him.
Cuts her losses and ditches him.
Takes his ship and flies back to the base. She flies to Arcto, the planet from the Last Jedi, which Luke was in solitude on. So
it now goes to Kylo still there.
This was my favorite scene in the movie, I feel. Kylo is visited by the ghost of Han Solo.
But it's specified quite quickly that it's the memory.
It's the memory.
Because he's not he can't be
memory.
A Force ghost or anything. But it's basically the scene on
vision.
The bridge.
Yeah.
Except this time,
Han turns Ben instead of the eventual murder. So it's sort of the same shots, the same dialogue. Like Kylo says, I know what I have to do, but I don't know if I have the strength to do it. And he turns around, he grabs his lightsaber, and he tosses it into the ocean. A fantastic scene. And while this is happening, you can see him. He's just trying to deal with the death of his mother. And I'll be honest, I had tears in my eyes, because it was a great way to say goodbye to Carrie Fisher, say goodbye to Princess Leia, and it was a really emotional scene between Han and Kylo. And my favorite scene in the movie. It was just unfortunate that it focused more on the flashbang and the, I guess, mythology sort of, and going all out kind of crazy for the final chapter of the saga, instead of these great little character moments. So he doesn't explicitly join the good guys, but he has turned to the light. So
he's acknowledged his bad ways, and that his parents, their downfall is probably to do with his dark ways and him being a Sith. So he, I think more so than joins the good side, he gives up the bad side.
Yeah,
and it's left like that.
So this is where we get, where is it? So hard cut to Rey on Ahch-To, and she's throwing rocks and pieces of rubble into the fire, which Kylo Ren's ship is up in flames now. She's burnt it to a crisp, and she's about to throw Luke Skywalker's, the original Anakin Skywalker's lightsaber, throws it in.
I'd probably say, this upcoming scene, you said yours was with Harrison Ford, but I think this scene is probably my favourite.
Yeah.
Because you get to see her throw the lightsaber into the wreck, and just before it lands, a hand catches it, and out walks Luke Skywalker.
Yep. Mark Hamill with longer hair. His hair is about 20 centimeters longer than it was.
But it looks like he's shampooed it since. He's had a good makeover. He's cleaned up and.
Looks absolutely gorgeous. So he talks to Rey sort of about the legacy of the Jedi's confronting fear in this fantastic scene, and Rey sort of realizes what she's meant to be. She realizes that she's bigger than just a name, which Palpatine, of course, is for her. And
she's bigger than her bloodline or her heritage or a name. She is who she chooses to be, and from this point onwards, she's got the motivation to see the film out and to go after this and that. And even though Kylo has destroyed the past MacGuffin, there is another MacGuffin that was in the ship, and she follows that from this point onwards. But Luke, as a Force ghost, acts very much in the vein that Yoda did for Luke in the past incarnation, and sort of says, hey, I probably did this wrong, but this is what I know was right, and this is where you should go from here.
So she says she's coming to die. Luke changes her mind, though, and then she realizes that, there was just a second Sith Wayfinder on Kylo Ren's ship, so she just goes back in, pulls it out, and realizes she doesn't have a transportation. So we get we see the X-wing Red 5, the classic fly, get lifted out of the water with the Yoda theme, the exact music playing from Empire Strikes Back when Yoda lifts the X-wing out of the swamp.
The moment that reminds you, hey, I hope you haven't forgotten, but you're watching a Star Wars movie, as The Force Awakens does every 3 seconds.
This is set up, so now we are set up for the final confrontation where we cut back to the Rebel base, and Poe, Finn and Rose are giving a big emotional speech about how they are about to go to on the Sith planet. They are about to go and confront Palpatine and this entire Sith force.
Because Rey's just sharing her location at this stage, so they're just going to follow her.
Of the thousands of Star Destroyers they have.
And Poe has been named Leia's successor. He's the new general, and he has quite a nice moment with Finn, where he says that he needs Finn to be a general by his side.
And that great scene where he's talking to Leia, as Leia's passed, of course, and he's sitting down and he's like asking her for help, and he's crying. And that was a really great emotional moment, and it really helped flesh out Poe's character for like that one last time before you get that final battle. So this leads us into the final confrontation. So the rebels, about 20 rebel ships, get to the planet.
20 odd. You've got your sort of your classic rebel warships,
B-wings,
and then you've got
Y-wings, A-wings, X-wings,
a couple of sort of more transport-based ships as well.
They get there and see a sea of Imperial Star Destroyers.
There's got to be hundreds, honestly. But they're there under the pretenses that Lando and Chewie have gone out on the Millennium Falcon, and they're going to just beam out the SOS signal, help join our side to take out the final order on one last stand. And so they're under the pretenses that if they stall, hopefully all this sort of endgame portals help will arrive.
Yeah. And
this leads us into the beginning of the third act. The final stand.
So we get there, and Rey arrives in Red 5. She flies down to the Sith Temple and walks inside, and so she confronts Palpatine. She wants to kill him, and then Palpatine sort of.
This is all after the final moment on the island with her. Ghost Luke reveals Leia's lightsaber.
Oh, yes.
And grants it to her, saying, like, sort of, take this. And then we get a janky flashback where it's revealed that Leia completed her Jedi training.
Like a video game cutscene.
And we've got some young Mark Hamill, young Carrie Fisher, but she saw her son's downfall or death if she continued on this path, so she gave her lightsaber up and decided to not complete becoming a Jedi. So this is the final sort of thing we see before she heads off, and so she's gone into the temple now to meet Palpatine, Granddaddy Palps, and
Ian McDiarmid was fantastic though. As weirdly and as badly and as shoehorned as he was into this movie, you could tell he was still having so much fun being the Emperor again, even if it was in a zombified corpse-like state. His voice, it was still great.
He's no sort of James Earl Jones in that he's lost the cadence of his voice. He's still just as good at Palpatine as he ever was in the originals or the prequels.
So they talk, and he explains about how weak his parents were, and then how strong he realized she was, and how that she could bring an end to him. So he sent for them to be killed, but then he will
live on within her, hopefully.
So he wants her to give in to the dark side and kill him so that he can live in her. Meaning that Palpatine he's not Sheev Palpatine per se, but he's the embodiment of
He's just
all
the Sith
evil.
embodiment.
He is the Sith.
He's in the sort of the Avatar The Last Airbender. He is all the past airbenders in one body. He is just the entity of Sith personified through Palpatine, the most recent pure Sith Lord.
So she actually resists. So she resists, and she's got her lightsaber, and she's ready to. So when she had it back, I thought she was going to put the thing through herself and end her life there.
Yeah. So we have a confrontation where the Knights of Ren have, because Kylo Ren's caught up. He's running through. He doesn't have his cloak or his helmet. He's just all dressed in black. It's kind of a weird look at this stage, but he's confronted by the Knights of Ren, and they have
the Knights of Ren, who are like the people who complained about them not being fleshed out in the last ones. They're going to be extremely disappointed here.
Yeah, they're just like the stormtroopers.
They might as well be. They are just the Praetorian Guards. They have They have one cool scene where they all get beaten up.
And so Kylo Ben Solo now, without his lightsaber, has to take them on, and there's one final Force time sort of call between them both where Rey is sort of about to she's holding her own
like
against
she's about to strike
against
down Palpatine.
But actually, Ben looks like he's a bit in over his head, and then she reaches her saber behind her back, and because what we've been led to believe from the previous Force calls, from behind his back, Ben Solo pulls out. Is that his mother's lightsaber? Which one does he get?
I believe he gets the mother's one.
I think he gets his mother's lightsaber, and then we get this cool scene of him taking on with a blue lightsaber the Knights of Ren before joining Rey in the temple.
Yeah. So now, so Palpatine continues with his sort of Force. His temptation of Rey, and then we cut back, and then of course cutting back to the battle, and things are getting even increasingly worse for the Resistance. Like they drop a troop ship down onto the Richard E. Grant's Star Destroyer, and they get out on their space horses, which is not as bad as the ones in The Last Jedi.
Yep.
They're not made a big deal out of. They're just a mode of transportation.
They're means to an end for this ground assault.
See if you can jam the transmission of their speeders, and they're not on speeders, and it's like it's a clever little moment that
they don't sort of hone in on for too much longer, which makes it all the much better because it's.
And they're just trying to deactivate that main Star Destroyer.
So that they can't get the Star Destroyers out into the system, so that they're all momentarily down for a couple of minutes. So they can just blow them all up.
Which in classic Star Wars tradition, you blow up one thing, and then all the rest of them are just disabled. So...
from this point on, they disable the...
So Rey and Ben battled Palpatine together.
They're not doing all that well.
They don't do well at all. They both get their lightsabers, and then Palpatine basically just puts out both his hands, and
They're both sent flying, and their lightsabers go with them. And
he's like takes the life force out of them, and he explains that two create life. So he becomes
the bond of two strong force.
Yeah.
Force users, the rule of two will bring this immeasurable amount of power, which must have been his end game or something along those lines, because he keeps talking about how he's seen the future.
And Palpatine is no longer a ghost. He's now the re-embodiment.
Original recipe Sheev Palpatine.
Yeah.
And he just shoots this lightning into the air that just hits all of the rebel ships specifically, and they're all out of power. And it's just sort of, he's just doing this, and they can't really stop him for the moment because they're just stuck where they are.
So Palpatine, chucks Ben in a little like force hole.
He just yeets him off a cliff,
and then knocks Rey out with like electric bolts from his fingers. So
his reformed fingers.
Yes. Yeah, and then this is where we get our Avengers portals, our Deus Ex Machina. Everything's going pear-shaped for the rebellion or the resistance at this point. And
until Lando and Chewie rock up on the Falcon
with about 5 million rebel ships.
More ships than there should be.
There shouldn't be.
At most, there should be like 100 or so.
But this sky is packed with them.
And so they start their assault on these 100 MacGuffin Star Destroyers. And they're doing pretty well, except now they're Force lightning. So clearly Rey needs to make a stand against Palpatine before they continue.
So she has
the assault.
This little moment where she's looking up at the stars, and then you hear the voices of all of
the actors they could get back.
Yeah, Palpatine's done it. He's done the portal in the sky with his Force lightning. He's looked up, and then Rey has this moment where she's looking at all the stars and she's hearing the voices of all the Jedi. So you hear Hayden Christensen, you hear Frank Oz as Yoda, you hear Sam Jackson, Mace Windu, you hear Obi-Wan Kenobi, of course. You hear plenty of other unnamed Jedis. I bet you Ahsoka Tano was in there somewhere, and Liam Neeson as Qui-Gon Jinn.
Who I kind of forgot was
they got every single one of them. So I don't know. I guess prequel fans can always have something to get out of this.
And then because Palpatine keeps referring to himself as having the power of all the Sith, Rey comes to the realization that she has the power of all the Jedi, and so she makes a stand against Palpatine. She holds up her lightsaber, and he starts shocking that instead of the sky laser beam that we're so accustomed to now.
Yeah.
And she's holding her own, but it's probably not perfect. And then she summons the second lightsaber and does this Wonder Woman, Black Panther crosses them and just starts walking towards Palpatine, and he's struggling, and then it bounces back and just fully disintegrates. There is no sort of he was thrown down a well, he could probably be alive. He's gone. Ashes, he is absolutely gone. Done.
So she slumps to the floor. She's dead. Rey is dead.
Rey is dead.
Rey dies in the Rise of Skywalker. Oh!
A moment of silence for our fallen Rey.
Ben, so Ben climbs out of the hole because they needed to keep him out of it for the last 5 minutes. And he's cradling her. And then he uses the good old Force.
If only there was a power that we'd been introduced to earlier in the film that he could use to save our protagonist.
Jesus.
And he does. In
the most eye-rolling way possible. Yeah.
Hugs her back to life.
And she comes up. And
they stare at each other for about 30 seconds. And then what the entire trilogy has been leading towards, they smooch.
At least there was one romantic connection in this film. It's an interesting one to have the main protagonist and the main villain.
Because Rose has been sidelined, Poe's getting none, and then this moment we hear "Take My Breath Away" play in the background as Ben Solo smooches with Rey
Palpatine.
before he drops dead.
And
Force ghosts into his clothes.
They kiss, they smile at each other, and then he just drops dead. And then,
Force ghost disintegrates, and his clothes are there, and it cuts back to Leia's body, which is now also gone.
As she was living in.
She was living on through her son Ben Solo.
So her body vanishes as well, and that's the conflict over. Finn and his friend, they're able to blow up the Richard E. Grant Star Destroyer.
They blow them all up,
and then we get that classic Independence Day scene where
everyone's celebrating throughout the galaxy.
Everyone's celebrating that they've just blown up a Star Destroyer. We get a little dose of Ewoks.
Oh yeah, but they don't blink. There is no CGI blink.
No CGI blink.
There was none. No McClunky, no blinks, nothing.
No blinks. One of them looked like it had been holdo maneuvered though, just split right down the middle. And okay, so
we're all celebrating back on the rebel planet. Maz Kanata gives Chewie a medal, and it's quite sort of a sweet moment because everyone Chewie loves is dead. And we've glossed over before, but the moment where Leia dies, it's quite sad. But then it cuts to Chewie finding out, and he just drops to his knees. And now Luke's gone, Han's gone, Leia's gone, and it's just everyone who was important to him is gone.
3PO and R2, the only ones left.
So, yeah, Chewie has this quite sweet moment. You get Rose and Finn reuniting. You get Poe and Zora having a bit of a banterous flirt. Sort of everyone's running around. You get all the side characters. You get
that great moment where Finn, Poe, and Rey all hug, and it's kind of... That was a nice moment. It's just unfortunate that this story is... This last one is just so convoluted and just silly. It feels like a farce, really.
Yeah.
This film. So then you think it's about to end, you think it's about to close, and then transfer to a sandcrawler on Tatooine and a couple of Jawas.
Ends where it begins.
Falcon flies over and touches down at the Lars homestead.
Back in Tatooine.
Rey slides down the hill, reminiscent of the opening of The Force Awakens.
And we see her bury the two lightsabers together. Luke and Leia's lightsabers are gone. She has an interaction with a female who asks her who she is. She introduces herself as Rey Skywalker.
Rey, looking off in the distance, and she sees
Luke and Leia as Force Ghosts. It's quite a sweet moment.
That did bring tears to my eye, just seeing them, and then she turns and says
nearly as sweet as Han discovering his surname in Solo, a Star Wars story, when he identifies himself as a party of one, and they call him Han Solo. So that was the only thing that was more sweet than this. But then they bury the lightsabers together, and we see Rey's got a cool yellow lightsaber, which
we both picked in Jedi Fallen Order
because we are Rey at heart, honestly.
Yes.
But they're like, we need a reason for people to pick something that isn't blue, green, or purple. So we've introduced yellow, which
with that
is cool, I guess.
Rey and BB-8 look at the twin sons of Tatooine. The Force theme swells up.
And
it
cuts to credits.
The Skywalker saga is over in, a weird way. It is
weird because we're not left with any solos, any Skywalkers by blood. They're all gone.
They're gone. Everyone's gone.
It literally killed Ben Solo to turn good.
I know. This movie is going to get absolutely crucified. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it.
I think at the moment it's standing at 56% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Really? Already? That is incredible.
And Metacritic, it's 53. And then Solo was 62.
It can only go down from there.
So it's not looking great. I don't think it's nearly that bad. I think it's
not,
far
no.
better
None of
than
them...
what it's given credit for.
Yeah.
But there might be a little bit of nerdy bias in there, but who knows?
But here's the thing, though. Force Awakens and Last Jedi both had 90% critical tomato meters. This one has a 58 critical.
I think there's not that huge a leap from
worst,
one to the other.
This is the worst critically... I think this is the only one with a green splat, am I right?
In terms of Star Wars, the whole saga?
I think the other prequels have both got positive, like the episodes 1 and 2 have both got positive.
Well, 3 is 80%, 2 is 65%, and 1 is 53%.
Okay, so
it's on par with Phantom Menace.
It is on par with Phantom Menace,
according to Rotten Tomatoes, which is probably the most not the most reputable source.
Not the most reputable, but I think the fact
it's a good sort of indication of where
the critics are standing.
The angry nerds on the internet lie as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which we are included in, so...
Yes.
So don't have a go at us.
Not angry, it's just,
Cynical.
Cynical.
The young, cynical nerds.
Young, cynical nerds. Yeah, just wait till... just wait till we watch... Jumanji 2. We've got Cats coming out.
I refuse to watch Cats. I will not watch Cats. I will watch Jojo Rabbit for every time someone sees Cats. Because goddamn do I love Taika Waititi.
Yeah. So now what does Star Wars do? So I think just to re-clarify my thoughts on it, all of the performances were fantastic. Adam Driver again, I was
a
really
standout.
He is, for me, just his last big acting performances. Black Klansman, Marriage Story, this new Star Wars trilogy. He's right now, I'd say, one of the best actors currently working.
I think Daisy Ridley's quite good. She's fallen into the character by this stage. She knows how to play it, and she's quite good at that. But I think, just Adam Driver, he hits those beats well, and the character, and it's just perfect. And then Carrie Fisher, considering what they had of her, is great in this. You get like Finn and Poe, you can't really go too wrong with. There's no dud performances in this movie. There's probably forgettable ones, but there's none that sort of will receive as much backlash as Rose did in Last Jedi.
Of course. I think it's just the story as a whole and the plot as a whole, that's what's going to receive the backlash.
Yeah, so, I don't know. Hopefully people who want to love Star Wars love this. I'm sure not everyone will, but I think this definitely deserves to not be just panned.
It doesn't deserve to be panned. No, it's just
the galaxy.
Unfortunately, this movie, to finish off this series, is not... It's not... although, really, if you think about it, it is kind of symbolic of... It is a mixed bag, and the Star Wars saga is an incredibly mixed bag.
Yeah, you've got your greats with Attack of the Clones and Phantom Menace. Then you got the kind of duds, your original trilogy.
They're boring.
The Mandalorian at the moment. We're a couple episodes in, but it's just, who cares?
We can talk about The Mandalorian ad nauseum in another episode. I'll probably do a review for it when it's finished.
How good is the scene in Rise of the Skywalker, though, where Palpatine just shocks Baby Yoda to death? Astonishing. I didn't see that coming.
It's like, right now with The Mandalorian, the scenes everyone freaks out is when Baby Yoda's put in trouble. Apart from that, the show's just kind of...
I don't fear for Baby Yoda, though.
Yeah.
I fear for anyone else across from him.
Alright, so that is our spoiler thoughts on Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker. Just quickly before you go, do you have it out of 10?
Out of 10? We'll go through the sequel trilogy. I'll say Force Awakens I'm going to give a 9. Last Jedi I'm going to give probably an 8 or so, and I think this one's probably a 7.5. I enjoyed them all immensely. I love these characters, these stories. I think it's diminishing returns, though, at the moment. What about you?
I feel like, Force Awakens, I'd give it an 8.5. Last Jedi, probably an 8.5 as well. and this one, unfortunately, 5.5 or a 6. I gave it 5.5 in my review. Just a quick thoughts one, but
an hour later,
it's
bumped up half a point.
Just because, the film is so well. It's just
there is a lot to appreciate.
There is so much to appreciate, and any movie that can make me tear up as much as it did definitely deserves some commendation.
Just a peek behind the curtain. Tyrone has not cried in 13 years.
I have not cried.
He had his tear ducts surgically removed, so this is a big ask for him.
Well,
to
I've
cry
only
3
cried.
times.
Nothing this year was. It's only those movies that really, like Hotel Mumbai this year was an extremely deserving movie.
And Hobbs and Shaw as well.
Hobbs and Shaw. All right, well, thank you. We've been the Young Cynics. Hopefully you can subscribe if you've enjoyed our content.
Our debut episode. Hopefully it gets a lot better from here. But if we get no traction on this, there will be none.
There will be none more.
So, yeah.
Look, some support. Yeah, some support would be great to start, and then hopefully
I want to fight back from the support. I want you to dislike this. I want negative comments. I want to see us come back from the storm, the raging storm of the internet. So
yes, yeah. Well, all right. I've been Tyrone,
and I've been Harry,
and we'll see you next time. Thank you for listening.
Ciao.